Welcome to today's news report. Thank you for tuning in. You are listening to the account with the latest updates for day 328 of the war in Ukraine. Today I will point out one interesting article and after go over the latest news regarding the Russian missile attack on Ukraine from January 14th. Otherwise, we have a couple of minor updates grouped as usual into the situation inside Ukraine, the occupied territories, Russia and Belarus, and the international developments. But to start, a look at the flashpoints along the front. Svatove. Ukraine seems to have a fairly strong hold over Novoselivsk despite Russian attacks. Holding the settlement and building on the success by pushing further into the highlands will open up the way towards Svatove. Soledar. The General Staff reported the shelling of Soledar today. Generally, the settlement should be considered under Russian control. However, I suspect that parts west of the train tracks can be considered a grey zone with occasional clashes. Videos shared by Ukraine online shows artillery firing at Russian positions around Soledar. Russia has carried out attacks on settlements around Soledar, but without success. Bakhmut. Fighting is concentrated on Klishchivka and the eastern areas. A claimed breakthrough of Wagner units at the Shevchenka street, marked here with a dotted line, turned out to be false. Northern Opytne continues to be a grey zone. Avdiivka. Fighting around Vodanye has flared up again. Russia tried to advance, but the attack got repelled, leading to heavy losses for Russian units. Kherson. Russia shelled Berislav and the suburbs of Kherson with incendiary ammunition. And before we start the news segment, another article by the Ukrainska Pravda I want to point out, titled Help Me! Story of deportation of teenager who managed to return to Ukraine. This is the story of 16-year-old Serhiy who returned to Ukraine on December 16th. In March 2022, a then 15-year-old boy was forcibly taken to the occupied territories and ultimately placed in a Russian foster home. The Russian ombudsman was personally involved in issuing a Russian passport for the boy, even though it went against the explicit wishes of Serhiy. The article tells the detailed story of how he was taken, found, and finally returned to Ukraine, exposing those responsible along the way. And to start the news segment, the latest updates on the aftermath of the Russian missile strikes on Ukraine from January 14th. Today at 1 p.m., the rescue operation at the destroyed apartment building in Dnipro were officially completed. The result of the tragedy? 39 rescued, including 6 children. 44 dead, including 5 children, 15 bodies could not be identified. 79 injured, including 16 children. Of 47 reported missing, 23 were confirmed dead, 4 were found alive, 20 are still missing, including 4 children. 487 victims filed complaints with the police and 5 children were orphaned. Later in the day, it was reported that 1 more child has died. The death toll now stands at 45, including 6 children. Additionally, more than 200 apartments were destroyed, according to the press service of the Office of the President. According to Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal, 9 thermal power units, 3 substations and 1 overhead power line were damaged. Due to the destruction caused by the attack, the Ukrainian power grid suffers from severe power shortages and blackouts continue. Oleksiy was relieved of his duty as a freelance advisor to the Office of the President after he handed in his resignation, saying he made a fundamental mistake. After the Russian missile attack, Arestovich said a missile was shot down by Ukrainian air defense forces, causing it to fall on an apartment building. Russian propaganda and officials quickly picked up on the claim to deny Russian responsibility. After a public outcry, he had to apologize to Ukrainians and the victims of the attack. And now for the latest updates out of Ukraine. As a result of a multi-stage special operation in the Poltava region, the Ukrainian security service neutralized the Russian agent network. The agents were tasked with identifying combat positions for the S-300 air defense systems, ammunition depots, and HIMARS and M777 howitzer locations. They were promised $20,000 for the destruction of military equipment. Moving on to the situation in the occupied territories. Russian occupation authorities have shut down all mines in Khrustalnyi, Luhansk Oblast. Over the years, the well-known mining settlement has turned into a ghost town. Russian construction companies allegedly removed the roofs of many high-rise buildings before leaving the city, which led to rain leaking into apartments, causing mold infestations. Additionally, authorities are planning to downgrade many towns in the occupied territories to simple villages. The idea is to reduce expenses by dismissing or reducing the required administrative staff. Russia has announced who they deem guilty for the Makiivka attack and decided to punish them. Among the scapegoats are the deputy chief of the so-called Makiivka military police and 7 members of the People's Police. The main Directorate of Intelligence of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine reports the accused will not spend much time in detention, as it has been decided they are to perform duties at checkpoints in Opytne and Mayorsk. A video was published on social media showing the state of the Azovstal Steelworks in Mariupol. And now a look at the latest updates out of Russia and Belarus. According to Natalia Humenyuk, head of the Joint Press Center of Operational Command South, as of January 17th, Russia has 6 missile carriers active in the Black Sea, armed with up to 44 cruise missiles. The death toll of Russian soldiers killed in an explosion in Belgorod has risen to 7. As a reminder, on January 14th, a Russian senior sergeant detonated a grenade, causing a 450 square meter fire, which led to the detonation of a weapons storage room. According to Sergei Shoigu, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation, President Vladimir Putin has given the order to expand the army to 1.5 million servicemen over the next 3 years. This will be achieved by creating 2 new military districts, Moscow and Leningrad, form an army corps in Karelia, and convert 7 brigades into motorized rifle divisions. Belarusian media have published fresh satellite images of the Lepelsky training ground of the 19th Guards Mechanized Brigade northeast of Minsk, taken by Planet Labs on January 6th. The Lepelsky training ground is one of the locations housing soldiers of the Russian armed forces on the territory of Belarus. During an interview with NHK, Defense Minister Oleksiy Reznikov stated that Russians are escalating the war in order to force Ukraine to negotiate on Russian terms. According to him, Russia is well aware that their plan to conquer Ukraine has failed. Russia is also trying to occupy the entire Donbas to show the Russian population that the war was a success and secure the future of the Russian government. And to wrap up the news segment, the latest international developments. Euromaidan Press published a detailed analysis why Ukraine needs Western tanks and which countries could supply them. While Challenger tanks are definitely a welcome gesture, they cannot be provided in the numbers Ukraine needs. The only option for modern Western tank is either the US Abrams or the German Leopard. According to Andriy Smirnov, deputy head of the Ukrainian President's office, an international tribunal for Russian war crimes in Ukraine could be set up within 1 to 1.5 years. Ukraine has already gathered support from the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, the European Parliament, and the European Commission. The Serbian president has demanded that Russia stop recruiting mercenaries for its Wagner group in his country. Russian websites and social media groups have posted many recruitment ads in the past. Serbian citizens are banned by law from participating in foreign conflicts. The Netherlands will be sending an additional Patriot air defense system to Ukraine along with Germany and the USA. Prime Minister Mark Rutte said in a conversation with US President Joe Biden in Washington that the Netherlands will participate in the initiative of the US and Germany to transfer Patriot systems to Ukraine. And now for the intelligence updates, starting as usual with the UK Ministry of Defence. On January 14, 2023, Russia resumed long-range missile strikes against Ukrainian infrastructure, the first in approximately 15 days, launching tens of missiles. As with the previous 8 waves of strikes since October 11, 2022, Russia primarily targeted the Ukrainian electricity grid. An AS-4 Kitchen large anti-ship missile launched from a Tu-22M3 backfire medium bomber highly likely struck a block of flats in Dnipro city, which resulted in the death of at least 40 people. Russia falsely implied a Ukrainian air defense missile was responsible. Kitchen is notoriously inaccurate when used against ground targets, as its radar guidance system is poor at differentiating targets in urban areas. Similar weapons have been responsible for other incidents of civilian mass casualties, including the Kremenchuk shopping center strike on June 27, 2022. While some missiles such as Kitchen are unsuitable for precision strike, evidence from the Ukraine war suggests that dysfunction of Russia's long-range strike capability is more profound. It highly likely struggles to dynamically identify targets and to access rapid and accurate battle damage assessment. And now for the daily assessment by the Institute for the Study of War. The researchers focus on the conflict between the Russian military leadership and Yevgeny Prigozhin, head of the Wagner PMC. The Kremlin continues to dispute claims that Soledar has been solely captured by Wagner mercenaries and indirectly accused Prigozhin of deliberately exposing the conflict. Dmitry Peskov stated that reports of a conflict are products of information manipulation by Russia's enemies. However, also some friends behave in a similar way. When questioned about the mentioned conflict, Prigozhin continued his vague answers on the issue, saying that he has no reason not to trust Peskov. The Institute is pointing out that Prigozhin could have disproven reports of a conflict by simply denying the issue. However, he clearly used vague messaging to generate additional discussion within the Russian information space. Ultimately, this is an attempt to further undermine faith in the Russian Ministry of Defense and in Putin-aligned actors, the researchers argue. And to wrap up the report, the evening update by the General Staff of Ukraine. Not having significant achievements on the battlefield, the enemy attacks peaceful settlements. The Russian aggressor continues to destroy the infrastructure and homes of the civilian population, violating the norms of international humanitarian law and the laws and customs of warfare. The enemy does not give up its intention to capture the Donetsk region within the administrative borders. The main efforts are focused on conducting an offensive in the Bakhmut direction. The enemy conducts unsuccessful offensive actions in the Avdiivka direction. The enemy is trying to improve its tactical position in the Kupiansk and Liman direction, while it is defending itself in the Novopavlivka, Zaporizhia and Kherson direction. The Russian occupiers are trying to isolate the civilian population in the temporarily occupied territories of the Kherson region from access to alternative sources of information. Along with stopping the broadcasting of all Ukrainian TV channels, the invaders made mobile communications available only to Russian operators. According to available information, the Russian occupiers are intensifying the search for deserters in the temporarily occupied territories. Under the pretext of searching for Ukrainian saboteurs, the invaders carry out raids on populated areas of the Kherson region. And that ends another news report. If you're interested in any of the articles, you can find the links in the description as usual. Thank you for tuning in and have a great day. You were listening to The Account. Slava Ukraini.